The left started like a stormloud, cruel, echoing through the classroom walls. I chased laughter from joy, it was mockery. Because in that moment, everyone believed the origin of who Мэри Джексон was. Mary, the quiet janitor, the older black woman who came before some recent left long after everyone else had gone home. Her hands were from years of labor, her back slightly bent from decades of moping the same who always. To Teram, she was invisible as she that passed by with a broom in hand and for a slart. But that morning at Jefferson High School, something extraordinary was about to happen. A single moment that would change everything not just for Mary, but for everyone who witnessed IT. IT began in a mere Mark Anderson's advanced math class, a place known for brilliance, not kindness. Anderson was the kind of teacher who carried his pride like a badge of honor, sharp sweet, sharper tongue, and though he knew spaghetti root, it is called as revealed his prejudice clearly. As Mary entered quietly to sweep the floor, trying not to disturb the class, Anderson noticed her. A smear curled at the corner of his lips, the kind of smear that carried malicious guisset as humor. Mrs. Jackson, he called, voice dripping with sarcasm. You have been listening to MY lessons all these years, haven't you? Why don't you show us what you learned? Here, solve this equation. Left erupted. Just shook. The student sneered, whispering just loud enough for her to hear. She probably doesn't even know what that is. She can't even read the problem. Mary froze. The piece of paper in her hand crumpled. Her heart pounded with the old, familiar existing of humiliation. But when she looked into Anderson's eyes, she saw no mercy, only satisfaction. And then, something inside her shifted. She had endured this kind of disdain her entire life. But today, she would not bow her head. Mary took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and walked towards the blackboard. The laughter faded into silence as her footsteps echoed. Every eye followed her, expecting her to stumble, to fail, to retreat. But as Mary reached for the chalk, her mind drifted back 30 years back to the days when she was a bright young student at Columbia University. One of the few black women in the mathematics department. Brilliant, determined, full of dreams. Until the word told her she didn't belong. She remembered the cruel messages carved on her dorm door. Go back where you came from. She remembered being ignored in group discussions, McBUI professors, and ultimately forced to live when her fat hair accident left her family destitute. That day, she walked away from her dream to bleeding the gates of Columbia. She promised herself she'd return to math someday. But life had other plans, and that promise faded into silence. Until now, Mary lifted the chalk and the classroom held its breath. The white dust touched the blackboard with a sharp click. It was the sound of history turning. At first, her hand trembled, but then, as if time itself bent round her, the numbers began to flow effortlessly, elegantly, perfectly. Equations that had baffled the best students now unfolded under her steady hand. Every symbol connected flawlessly, every step precise, like a child, butterfly. The class leaned forward in disbelief. Whispers turned into silence. Emir Anderson's smirk vanished. What began as mockery was now awe. Even the top students saw and comprehend how the woman who scrubbed their flowers was now solving the impossible calmly, confidently, caring politely. And when she placed the chalk down, Mary turned to face them all. Her voice was steady. This is your answer. A pause. And then complete, utter silence. The laughter that once filled the room was gone. All that remained was respect, stunned, humbling respect. After class, the story spread through the house like wildfire. By afternoon, everyone at Jefferson High had heard that janitor solved the hardest math problem in school. But for Mary, it wasn't about fame. It was about against something no one could take from her anymore. That evening, as she cleaned her small janitor's closet, a quiet like a cat, she turned to find Emir Anderson standing at the door. His eyes were different now, heavy with shame. Mary, he began quietly, I came to apologize. I was wrong. I humiliated you, and I regret it deeply. Mary looked at him gently, her face calm yet firm. You know, Emir Anderson, she said softly, this isn't the first time we face this. If I spend my whole life enduring looks, words, and silence like yours. But this morning, it shared more because it came from someone I believed was meant to teach truth. Her voice trembled not with weakness, but with strength. I don't need your apology for me. I just hope you remember a person's word isn't written on their skin, or their uniform, or their paycheck. It's in their heart, their mind, and how they treat others. Anderson bought which is hit. For once, he had nothing left to say. He just nodded deeply, humbly, and in that moment, the teacher learned which is greatest lesson. By the next morning, Mara's name was everywhere. Students whispered first Auri Visau. She's a generous. She made a mere Anderson speechless. She's incredible. Teachers who once ignored her now greeted her respectfully. Even the principal, Robert Williams, called her into his office. Мэри Jackson, he said, I heard what happened, and I'm ashamed that it took this long to see you. I'd like to offer you a party position in our med department. Mary smiled the same humble smile that had endured decades of silence. Thank you, sir, she replied, but I don't need a title. My word isn't in a position. It's in how I live and what others learn from my teeth. The principal nodded, moved to the core. For the first time, Jefferson High began to change not from rulers, but from hearts. Weeks later, the school organized a large community event to discuss racism and equality. The auditorium was packed students, teachers, parents, even local leaders. When Mary walked on stage, the crowd fell silent. Her voice, tau soft, carried power. I once dreamed of being a mathematician, she began. But I was told I didn't belong because of my skin. So I lived quietly, cleaning the floors of classrooms I once dreamed of teaching in. But life has a strange way of bringing us back to who we truly are. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. For years, I believed the word would never change. But I was wrong. Because change doesn't begin with authenticity, begins within us. A person's word is not defined by their job or race, but by their dignity and heart. And respect is not something we give to those we think deserve it, it is something we are to everyone. When she finished, the auditorium erupted in applause, not the loud kind of celebration, but the deep, emotional kind that comes when people realize that heavy witness truth. Many cried, even Mary Anderson, sitting in the front row, wiped a tear from which is cheek. Mary returned to her court work the next day. Same map, same bucket, same hallway, but everything felt different. Now, students greeted her with smiles. Teachers nodded respectfully, and Mary Anderson always brought slightly a story of genuine honor. In her revelation, Mary no longer saw the weary janitor she once thought she was. She saw a woman who had endured, who had stood up, who had changed their hearts. She saw a woman finally free. Jefferson had changed their forever. Racism and prejudice didn't vanish overnight, but they began to crumble. The story of the janitor who solved the impossible became a lesson shared every year, a living reminder that greatness can come from the most humble places. Mary never sought fame, never wanted the spotlight, but through a quiet courage, she became a symbol not of mathematics, but of humanity. Мэри Джексон taught the world that dignity cannot be erased, that respect must never be earned through a titles, only through a truth, and that sometimes the most powerful lessons in life are not taught by teachers, but by those we never taught could teach us anything at all.